Okay, so for this problem, we're going to solve a quadratic equation by completing the square. And so the equation for a quadratic is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And our equation here is 2x squared plus 6x plus 7 equals 0. And the first thing we're going to want to do is divide the equation by 2 because our leading coefficient is greater than 1. And now that we divide by 2, we will end up with x squared plus 3x plus 7 halves equals 0. And now we're going to want to subtract 7 halves from each side because we want to get x by itself on one side of the equation. Alright, so now what we have left is x squared plus 3x equals negative 7 halves. And since we are completing a square, we're going to use the equation b divided by 2 squared, and we're going to take that and add it to each side of the equation. So b is equal to 3, so we'll just make a note of that. b equals 3. So 3 divided by 2 squared is equal to 9/4. So we're going to add 9/4 to each side of the equation. So it'll end up looking like this. X squared plus 3x plus 9/4 equals negative 7 halves plus 9/4. And when we solve the equation, we end up with x squared plus 3x plus 9/4 equals negative 5/4. And so we can factor the left side of the equation to equal x plus 3/2 squared. So now it looks like this. And I'm just going to start on a new blank page now. Alright, so we have x plus 3/2 squared equals negative 5/4. So now what we're going to do to get rid of the square is we are going to square root both sides of the equation. And when we square root each side of the equation, we end up with x plus 3/2 equals the square root of negative 5/4. And since we have a negative under the square root, we know we're going to end up with imaginary numbers somewhere along the lines here. But first, we want to get x by itself, so we're going to subtract 3/2 from each side of the equation. So x will now equal negative 3/2 plus or minus the square root of negative 5/4. And so we can simplify this to 5/2, but we are going to have an I because of the negative, and we'll just make a note down here. I is equal to square root of negative 1. I squared is equal to negative 1. And so our final answer is going to be x equals negative 3/2 plus or minus the square root of 5/2 I.